Achin was playing and Nyaehh was dancing, and Lansheng was watching the two of them the way you watch something you have already lost once. The music was flawless. It was always flawless. In every life Lansheng had ever found him in, and he had found him in very few, which was its own long grief, the man could not bring himself to be less than perfect at a thing while anyone was watching. He played the way other men breathed. The notes went up into the blue evening, and Nyaehh moved through them, her sleeves catching the last of the light, and the table of strangers across the courtyard had gone quiet without noticing they'd done it. Lansheng poured himself another cup. He had known this man when he was a god. That was the thing none of them knew, and the thing he would not say because saying it required saying everything else. He had stood beside him in the divine courts when they were equals. 3 thrones, 3 realms, and the two of them across the hall from each other for longer than these mortals had a written language. They had been friends, genuinely, not the very alliance of powers, but the real thing. And he had watched him love her. Not quietly. That was the part people get wrong about what that kind of love when they told it later. They made it discreet, restrained, too careful gold-stealing glances. It had never been like that. He had loved her the way a fire loves air, openly, extravagantly, with a complete and slightly alarming willingness to burn down anything that stood in the way of it, including himself. Lansheng had watched him walk into places just to be where she was, had watched him treat his own survival as a bargaining chip he was delighted to spend, and he was exactly the same now. That was the strange comfort of it. Down through all the lives, all the deaths, all the reshaping the world did to a soul as it dragged it through the wheel of life, that had not changed. He still loved her like it was the only thing he'd been made to do. The tragedy had taken Lansheng too. He did not like to think about that part, and so he thought about it often, the way you press a bruise. The evil had worn him, used his hands, his face, his rank, used the trust these two had placed in him, and turned it into the thing that helped end them. He had not chosen it. That was what everyone said afterward, the ones who bothered to say anything. You didn't choose it, as though the not choosing gave the hands back their innocence, as though he had not still been inside himself somewhere, watching. He had survived it. They had not. The goddess died, and the demon god went into the wheel of life, and Lansheng was left standing in the wreckage of a thing he had been made, against his will. So he went looking, and he had been late. He would carry that, he thought, longer than he'd carried anything. Down in the mortal world they had come back, as Shue, as a Jingyal. And they had walked a hard road together, gathering the pieces of a broken weapon, the same one that was the reason of their demise. One impossible feeling at a time, and Lansheng had been somewhere else. 3 provinces over, asking the wrong people, following a name that turned out to be a different name. He found the places they had been. That was the cruelty of it. He was never far behind, only ever just behind. A town that still spoke of a strange pair who'd passed through, a lamp keeper who described a woman with the exact qualities he'd have known everywhere. He arrived and arrived and arrived, and each time they had already gone on ahead, and then one day he arrived and there was nowhere further to follow, because she had shattered at the end of that road, and the man who loved her had gone back into the wheel alone, and Lansheng had missed all of it. The whole life, every hard mile of it. He had not been there for a single day. He had wanted, at least, to have been there. And now they were here, in the courtyard, alive, and Achin was playing, and Nyaehh was dancing, and neither of them knew any of it, and that, the not knowing, was the treasure Lansheng had decided to protect with everything he had. because they were happy. That was the one thing that undid him, sitting there with the wine going warm in his hand. In the past, they had loved each other against the whole architecture of heavens. They had loved each other on a death march and paid for it. And here in this life, this small, ordinary, borrowed life, they got to simply have it. He played, she danced, he flirted, she pretended to be unmoved, and no one was going to strike either of them down for it. Not tonight. Tonight it was just two people and a gudang, and the light going out of the sky at its own gentle pace. He wanted it to last forever. He was aware that this was not a thing the world offered. He wanted it anyway, fiercely. There was the other matter too, the thing he kept almost catching. Something was wrong with the time, he was fairly sure. He would notice it, a conversation that had already happened, a road he had walked and not walked, and he would begin carefully to work it out. And then he would find himself at the start again, holding nothing, the way you wake up from a dream certain it had a shape and unable to name a single part of it. He started to suspect that someone was turning the same page over and over, and he was a word on it, being read again. He could not hold the thought long enough to do anything with it. He never could. It went the way everything went. So he let it go again and again, and drank his wine, and watched his oldest friend play flawlessly for the woman he had loved through every life the world had ever handed him. "You're brooding," Wang Hao said without opening her eyes. "I'm appreciating the music." "Did you notice more anomalies?" she asked, but he shook his head. They talked about it a lot, since she also noticed, but neither of them came to any conclusion, and it seemed that she wasn't as aware of what was happening as he was. Achan reached the end of the piece, perfectly, of course. He would sooner have died than fumbled the ending. And Nyaehh came out of the last turn laughing, and he looked up at her from the instrument with an expression that a god had worn in a divine court 1,000 years ago, and had never once been allowed to keep. She didn't even stop the turn when he was already with her, turning her again, now around himself. He got to keep it now. Lansheng looked away and drank, and let it be a good night, for as long as the night was willing to be good.